Welcome to Saturday Night Cenobites. My name is Seth Nay, and every single week I bring on a guest that's a filmmaker or works in film. And we also raise funds for the Corazon Cinema and Cafe and the Sunray Cinema, which are my two favorite theaters in Florida because they're somewhat closed at the moment. Sometimes they have pop ups that are happening, drive ins, and they also have virtual screenings at home. So if you'd like, go click on the bottom there. They have all their websites and how you can watch videos at home or their pop-up drive-in information. Um, so this week I have my friend that I met at the Jack's Film Bar Mondays that they have. They used to have at the bars when they were open, but now they have virtual ones. And hopefully they all get back to normal and we can all gather again. And I met Jay at one of the first ones that I went to, and welcome to the show, Jay Palmer. Hey Jay, how are you?
I'm good, Sarath. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me on Saturday Night Cenobites. How have you been?
I've been well. I actually think we met. I think it was at a Rain Dogs event, maybe even before Film Bar.
Ah,
It might have been a concert, and you had just moved here.
ah, it could be it. I also go there for stand-up comedy too.
It might have been one of those. I know Wednesdays are like open mic and all that, so I'm pretty sure it was at Rain Dogs in the back.
Indeed, it's a great room for stand-up for sure, and definitely. I've never, I don't think I've been there for a concert, but I've been there for the open mics for sure. So that could have been it. So. Indeed. So, I was looking through all your information that you sent over, so that way it gives me an idea of what you've done in the past and currently
Absolutely
doing
nothing.
in the present.
I've done nothing. Go ahead.
Indeed. But we'll start off with your LinkedIn profile. You went to the Eastern Suffolk. I think it's. Do they say it like all? Is it Boches
It's just
School?
BOCES.
BOCES School, from '96 to '99, and you did editing, graphic design, and video editing. What was it like during those times?
Interesting. Video in 1996 and graphic design in 1996 was really a very different ball game than it is now. I literally could make something on this phone that would absolutely demolish what I could make on those deck. I guess it was quarter-inch deck to deck. And actually, to be honest, the reason I went into the video editing course was because it was far cheaper than renting time on in an editing suite. So I figured for $400 or $500, whatever it was, every 2 nights a week, I could go down there for 3 hours and really just use their decks. And so they were teaching production and editing, and I had already shot and cut 20, 30-minute films. So I started off sort of in the background, real quiet, and then I moved into the editing room, and then I had a long conversation with the teacher, and I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I get what you're doing. I love it. I'm going to be in there editing every Tuesday and Thursday. And he's like, absolutely fine. So I sort of found a way around editing time because it was ridiculous. It was about $125 an hour back in the day to get on either beta decks or, half-inch or quarter-inch decks. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. And then graphic design, I really had an interest in just being a creator overall. And I can't remember the programs, but it was not, I think it was possibly in the infancy of like when Photoshop and Illustrator, but I believe it was something called like Multi-Ad Creator and maybe other fledgling Adobe programs. And it just gave me just a basic knowledge. And I met some really good people that I'm actually currently still friends with from that class. So really that BOCES is like a continuing education in Suffolk County, which is where I'm from, Long Island. I just actually wanted to wear this because I don't have any Wu-Tang stuff, and I totally was going to go buy a shirt today, but I got caught up at work. In your honor,
You're the best.
and I really hope you watch the series on Hulu. The Wu-Tang series was amazing.
I agree. I watched that and I couldn't get enough of it, and also the Showtime documentary too. So if you get the chance, check that documentary out.
Okay, I have not. I'm definitely going to.
It's great. It's like 4 hours long, and it's like it's fantastic.
So that's not long enough for me because I'm absolutely obsessed, and I can't wait for season 2 of the Hulu show.
Me neither. I agree. It's gonna be great. So you were also a video lead at Wiz from October 1999 to 2000 October 2002. What was that experience like?
So the Wiz was sort of like a Best Buy, and I went in. My brother had worked there. He was an Optimum online manager, which was again in the fledgling days of signing people up for broadband. So it was owned by Cablevision. It was on, you know, basically, if anyone has seen The Wolf of Wall Street, I believe there's a Wiz commercial in that. So anybody from New York is probably familiar with the Wiz. They got sued as well because of the name. I don't know really know why, but so it used to be called The Wiz, and then they had to change to Nobody Beats The Wiz. And I went in, uh, like I think I started like 2 weeks before Black Friday, and I don't think that I came up for air for another month because it was just that ridiculous. And that was my first real retail Black Friday. And anyway, I was obsessed with the camcorder section and the cameras, and a lot of the people, a lot of the salespeople that worked there had no idea what they were talking about. And I came in and I was like listening to their pitches, and I'm like, oh my god, they really don't know, but they're making money, and they were selling all these cameras under the wrong descriptions and all that good stuff. So I ended up becoming video lead because I basically stepped in and was like, I started teaching them actually what the cameras did. And this is back in the day when 1 megapixel was a huge deal. It was like the little Sony DSC cameras. They took those sticks, and they still had the Mavica cameras, which took a floppy disk. I'm very old. And anybody in photography and film back in those days, when there were still many people that basically turned their nose up at digital. And so Sony was one of the first. I think Fuji was another one. And they came in again, Sony with a floppy disk. Like you could probably store like 35 photos on it at probably 640 by 480. Really poor photos, but it was a huge deal that no film had to be developed. And then they came out with the smaller camera sticks. And I loved the department because it was, you know, to me, any media is an expression for people, and you know, even selling TVs, it was a big deal, you know, to get people set up with TVs. And I was always obsessed as a kid with movies and television and music and all that stuff, so it was kind of a good place for me. They went out of business, so Cablevision had purchased the Wiz basically as a vehicle to sell their cable modems at a loss. So every cable modem we signed people up for, not only did they pay us $20 spiff, so we could sell like 4 or 5, 6 of those a day and just, you know, supplement our salary. But they also basically ran it as a $300 loss. So within a year and a half, they were out of money because they were showing. But the Cablevision side was making tons of money. So it was an interesting thing. It was a you know, I met a lot of great people there as well. And yeah, we went out of business in like 2001, and that set me free to explore some other things. And that's about the year that I made my feature in New York.
Ah, sweet. What was the name of your feature in New York that you made?
So it was called Darkness Falling, and it was a film that was actually written in 1988 by my cousin Paul, and he and I filmed about a 27-minute version on VHS, and he brought it back to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. He was going to film school at the time, and he cut it there, and we liked it. And so, by the way, if anyone, the name sounds familiar, there was like a 2000 film called Darkness Falls, which sort of pissed us off because we had already written this Darkness Falling in 87. And when I rewrote it in 2000, I expanded it to about an hour and 23 minutes. And I took about 8 or 9 months to film. No crew. It was just me basically running camera and whatever lights we use, which was pretty much mom's lamp. And, you know, and the actors were friends of mine. My friend Russ, who was at the time my softball coach, my buddy Rich, who was a guy I met in the BOCES for graphic design. My mother was in it. It was interesting. The strange part is the New York City Film and Video Festival was basically from September 9th 2001 until September 16th in Manhattan. And so during the towers. and my film show was drawn for night one. So we went in on Friday night. We took the train in, and it was a big to do in the theater at Madison Square Garden. I don't know what's called now, but they basically set it up for all the filmmakers. And my girlfriend at the time and I took the train in. We met a ton of people, and it was a great experience. And then Saturday night we showed our film down in the village, close to the village, and we picked a hotel in Soho, and we were a block from the towers. And we stayed overnight Saturday after the showing. It was a pretty good showing, and it was actually the first time I had ever had any of my work shown. This is pre YouTube, all that stuff, pre MySpace, and it was an interesting. About 45 people showed. It was a small theater down in the village, and we went home Sunday and Tuesdays when the towers came down. So I would say we were really lucky to draw that and not draw like Wednesday and had been staying in there Tuesday or Monday overnight to Tuesday. So it was an interesting time for me. I took it as a strangely took it as a sign, and I backed off of my filmmaking career for quite some time, and I put the camera away. And it was, for any New Yorker that lives through it, it's a little bit of a different thing. um, I guess from a distance, it's a terrible thing, but then when you're close up and people that were involved, it didn't feel like the time uh, to be creative. I mean, it did after a while, but for a good year or so, it was a time of healing. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot around then. It was about when the whiz went out, and it was the towers coming down, and I was moving from house to house, and it was a very unique time in my life, and both on the good side and the bad side, a little bit like 2020. And now it feels like everyone I talk to now is going through very polar opposites in their life. Um, so it's come full circle 20 years later.
Indeed, and with the pandemic and everything, I've been watching the news about the whole with New York and everyone's being doing the exodus there and leaving New York, and as well as California, and those are like the very most expensive states because I used to live in California too. My rent was
Mm.
really expensive for a one bedroom, one bath, and now it's like everyone's moving to all the small towns, which is really affordable, which is a good move for the time being. But hopefully everything goes back to normal.
Yeah, quite a few of my friends are either here in Florida or North Carolina is another spot where they go. And it's real estate just got really a little bit out of hand there. And I love New York, and I miss all my friends, and I miss the food. I miss the pizza. But when I go back, it's a rat race. It's very stressful, and I remember it well. And it sort of it hones you, I guess, as a person. And New Yorkers get that rap of being curt and short and maybe rude. I don't think that's it. I just think it's just because people are to the point and very quick with what they say. So we come across that way. But I think a lot of people, when they travel to New York for the first time and they start asking around for directions, they're very surprised at how friendly people can be. I think it's a wonderful place. But I found a really nice home here in Jacksonville, and I really love the city. And I've sort of been a little bit of a baby, like in the corner champion of Jacksonville for many years, because people that live here, it gets a bad rap, and the city does some weird things, and but I love, I've had people tell me that have moved away. In fact, my girlfriend, I had moved to Washington, and was done with Jacksonville, and she said, your Instagram and your Facebook and your posts made me sort of miss it. You're showing the good side of Jacksonville, and I guess every city sort of deserves a group of artists that will embrace it, and I think Jacksonville has that in as much as any place I've ever lived. And I've lived in many cities in New York, and I think Jacksonville has an amazing core of very, very talented, very creative people that love this city and sort of fight for that underdog that we are.
I agree, and when I went to the short like the showing at Sunray, I saw how amazing the talent of filmmakers and actors and actresses, and I never everyone in film were doing their one shot thing, and it was just amazing what Tim did for like the whole scene and brought everyone together, and the quality of film was just amazing. Like I've never seen that in any other city before, well, except for LA, but like LA, they know their stuff too, but for Jacksonville, that was amazing.
Yeah, people have asked, how come you're not in LA? And I'm like, That's like being, a goldfish in a huge tank of goldfish. Goldfish eye. I don't know. And I just thought to myself, I'd probably rather be in a place where I can like inspire people that aren't used to this, like people that I know. And I've always loved that. That was, like I said, when I made my feature, everyone that was in it had never been in a film before, and it was challenging for me. And I may not have got the best performances, obviously, from people. But what I did do is I was very sure, and I was very, I had it, I was set in my ways to film as chronologically as possible. So they understood the scenes better. They were building their own knowledge of the story as we were going. So what I am proud of with that film, and there's a ton, I mean, it was shot on a Sony Handycam that could barely handle any, had no dynamic range, and the autofocus was terrible. And there were all these issues with it, but it was made with a lot of love. And what I do see is that my crew, my crew of actors, as the movie progressed, they became better. And these are people that had never ever acted before. And I'm really proud of the last act of that film, and I'm really proud of how far they went as untrained actors, how far they were willing to go to portray something that I had written. And so it's interesting. And I had done that a lot in New York, where I worked with mostly my friends, because I sort of got a rush off of working with people that saw what it was like for the first time and became really interested. And my story was interesting because I developed a love for filmmaking down here in Jacksonville. So my father, he moved down here in 1974 to teach at UNF when there's only like under 3,000 students. And so it's starting in 74 or 75. My brother and I would come down at least once a year. I don't think we missed a year. We came down for a lot of summers. And his neighbor worked in the insurance industry, and they would take depositions, and they would do so recording voice. And I guess sometime in the early to mid 80s, they got a big camcorder, and they had kids, and we would play with the kids there. And then one summer we were down, one of the kids said, "Hey, my dad brought home a camera. He said we could play around with it." I was like, "Really?" So we went in, and I remember setting this big thing up. It could barely move because it had to be plugged into a wall. And I started immediately taking charge and yelling at people, just like I still do. And we started making these silly little skits. And then I realized we could dub music over it. So we made a music video for Abracadabra. And, because we accidentally found out if you hit stop and then have somebody move and then hit record, it makes them disappear in the video. So we just did it probably was only a minute, but it seemed like a 30-minute video of people just disappearing to that song. And then they would consistently be like, "Let's go outside and play." And I was like, "No, we're not done with the camera yet." And I became the most obnoxious friend, because I was like, every single week, I'm like, "Is your dad bringing home the camera this Friday?" And so I went home and realized that was a love that I would never give up. Like, probably really it's between making film and music. It's about the two things I couldn't live without. And I started saving money to rent cameras home. And to do so, again, you had to leave a $500 deposit. And this is like 1986, and I'm like 15 or something. So my parents were generous enough to put down a deposit. My cousin Paul and I got Paul into it, and he's the one that ended up going to School of Visual Arts, and following his own career. And he moved out to LA, and he made a phenomenal film in the late 90s, and he's still making films. He's back on the East Coast, and he just did I'm sitting here doing these 48-hour challenges. He did a 7-day COVID challenge where he filmed a feature in 7 days and just released his first trailer, and it blew me away. So anyway, he and I sort of started at the same time, and he was always interested in we would make spook houses in my grandmother's attic, and he had a whole collection of records, like the soundtrack to Alien and the soundtrack to, so he had all these creepy soundtracks, and we were just obsessed over any sort of thing we could get with movies, or do, to the point where he made, out of cardboard and saran wrap, a camera, put that in quotes, that was in a 2:3:5 aspect ratio, surrounded by cardboard and a handle, and we would legitimately walk around the woods holding this camera that did nothing because there was no electronics, and we made these films. And then we realized that had run its course. So then we got a tape recorder out, and we just made movies on audio. Like, we would make movies if we did it with sticks. Like, it did not matter to us. We just wanted to do that. So yeah, that process started here in Jacksonville, and I brought it back home, and then it sort of reignited here in Jacksonville in like 2015. I was a GameStop employee, and I'm sorry I'm jumping ahead because that's on my. I know that you're going to cover that. I did 12 years with GameStop, which was murder on my soul, and every year we would go to managers conference and get free stuff. So I had 3 Xboxes and 2 PlayStations and all this stuff, and I was realizing, I don't need this. I really, it's a fun distraction, but I brought it all into my store at 103rd, and I traded it. Got about $680, and I used it to purchase Amazon gift cards, which I still have in the other room, and I'll never get rid of them. And I purchased a used Canon T4i, and I went to eBay and I got a Super SMC Takumar 1969 50 millimeter vintage lens. And the worst torture on the planet was the camera and the lens showed up at my house, and I didn't have the M42 adapter,
Mm.
which doesn't exist at Best Buy, and it doesn't exist unless you order it from somewhere. So I had to wait another 3 or 4 days to have this item shipped. But as soon as I got it, I felt like I had never left. And so, yeah, that was my rebirth, both birth and rebirth here in Jacksonville.
Indeed. I shoot with the Canon T3 myself, and I use the vintage lenses myself,
Mm,
and I pick up all my like vintage lenses at in Daytona at Clem's at the flea market, and they have like a lot of vintage lenses, so I recommend going to there. They don't. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but it's great just shooting with vintage lenses.
that's like dirty talk to me. I didn't even know this place existed.
Oh, I definitely recommend it, and they're excellent pricing too. Eh,
Oh, and the fact that you can actually click it on your camera and give it a go, because it's tough. Yeah, as you know, buying a vintage lens, you may get a copy that has a lot of fungus, and it's really hard to see on eBay. Actually, I have I got a Helios lens that had a weird aperture issue, and it was like it smeared or something and had oil on the blades. And I stupidly watched a YouTube video and thought I could fix it. So it's in a baggie right now. It's in about 300 pieces.
uh,
So if anybody knows how to fix that, I know Zane, if you're out there, Zane could probably fix it. Zane, please help.
Indeed. We have some viewers in the audience, so if you'd like to jump in on the comment section, we'll answer all your comments and questions, but be nice to us.
Oh God, no, yeah, definitely be nice.
Yeah. So, you mentioned that you worked at GameStop, and what are your favorite video games that you've played, like from all the generations of consoles you've ever
Yeah,
owned?
that's a great question. I will always be obsessed with Super Nintendo. I think it's the best console. Has this great class, and it's sort of proven because everything now looks like a SNES game. So if you go onto the Switch eShop, and you'll see all these RPGs that look like Chrono Trigger, and so I'm a fan of story based games. Will always be a large child because I love Nintendo, and I really like Metroid is my favorite. Super Metroid is the greatest game of all time, maybe outdone once by Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That's for another discussion. But it's only better. It's only better because it's a more modern game. They took what worked with Super Metroid and they sort of expounded upon it. Huge fan of that genre though, and of course, any Mario, or as you say down here, Mario. I say Mario and I get made fun of, so I've sort of swayed how I say that. But any Mario game is great, and obviously Mario Kart is classic. Anyone doesn't like Mario Kart should probably just move to like the Ukraine or Russia or something. No offense to any Russians or Ukrainians. Actually, I had a very lovely actress who participated in my 48 from the Ukraine, and hi, didn't mean that.
Indeed. And so, you also worked for the Crux Collective from 2014 to 2016 as a filmmaker and photographer. How did you link up with those folks?
Um, a friend of mine named Amanda Heisch uh, was the art director there. And it was around the time, let's see, I was going right around the time I bought the T4i. I was going through a divorce, and it was just it's interesting that these swings in my creative career generally come around these moments where you're sort of down and out, and you are when you dig really deep and you want to find out who you are again, right? So that was my thing with my camera, is I knew I was going through this, and I knew I needed something, um, just something internal. And so that's one of the reasons I got the camera, and it made me feel like who I should and who I was and who I should be. And it stood for a lot of growth in me, in that telling somebody's story is a way for me. It's always been a way for me to tell my own story without actually, i- without telling my story. I can tell people something through my own vision. So, when you write, obviously every single character in the things you write is you, in a way. So it's an interesting way to express yourself without, I guess, stepping off the platform, in hoping there's something there. So you can kind of do it that way. Um, I was still in retail, and I was salaried with GameStop. So they had me over a barrel. I mean, it was pretty much, I could do anywhere from 45 to 60 hours per week. And Amanda contacted me, and she said, I like your stuff. I want to introduce you to Kylie Carter, who was the founder and owner of Crux. And they had a whole crew of video people, but they were in flux, and that's sort of what the collective was. It was like a group of artists that didn't necessarily work for Crux Collective, but they were part of the collective. So they would get jobs here and there from her, and it was just a really good place to network and meet. Well, I went down and I met Amanda, and she brought me in and introduced me to Kylie. And I remember I was really nervous. I was extremely nervous because I had seen the things they had done, and it was like a really cool. It was a great space. It was like everything was like exposed brick, and it was like everything that you would imagine in like this cool little Springfield backlot place. And I explained my idea to Kylie, and I said, I've sort of been this shadow artist for a good part of my life, where I was either assisting my cousin, or my biggest regret, one of my regrets in life, is not going to film school. And my parents were, at the time, it was not an accredited school, and they didn't really feel it was a good move on my part. You parents they're logical, and they'll say, it's not an accredited school. How are you going to make money as a filmmaker? They're thinking of my future, and I'm just sitting there like, this is who I am. And so I allowed that. It's not my own fault, because a child can also go and apply for loans and do all that stuff himself, but I chose to let someone else dictate my life, and I sort of became a shadow artist. And I would watch people and attach myself to artists, because at least I had slight amount of expression that way. And the interview at Crux, I remember explaining this story idea that I had, and I couldn't really get it out. And I said, if you let me, I'll film it and I'll show you. And so Amanda was a painter, and I started this little short with her drinking coffee on her back porch in front of this empty canvas. And she just can't seem to concentrate. She keeps looking at this canvas. And I thought, this is a way to explain the last 20 years of my life, after 9/11, sort of taking this hiatus and not doing anything very creative. So she's staring at this blank canvas like I was staring at this sort of blank canvas. And we cut to a close up of the canvas, and the canvas whips out of frame, and then it's go time. And then we film the rest at Crux, and she set up her easel, and we get it, close ups of her putting the paint out. And she had explained to me that was her favorite part, even more so than the painting, was preparing the paint. And it was done with this delicacy and this love. And so I couldn't have been in a better position with this beautiful Takumar vintage lens that just picks up light. And you understand that vintage lenses just they play with light in a way that modern lenses can't unless you spend money. You'll spend a lot of money on a modern lens, and then you go and spend a lot more money on a pro mist filter and other such diffusion and all this stuff to get it to look like a vintage lens, because people are taught, what do you hear when you watch a lens review? It's like, is it sharp? Is it sharp? Is it sharp? Yes. Okay. So we have sharp lenses. Yes, 4K, 8K. All of this is beautiful. But to me, what's beautiful is a shot from like a Vilmo Zsigmond film, like Deer Hunter or Close Encounters, and it's not sharp. It's beautiful. It's like a painting, and there's haze, and there's roll off on highlights, and so I have this weird thing about sharpness. When we're going to 8K, and yes, I have an R5 on the way. So, but I'm not going to use 8K. I have no reason to use 8K because I want to make mine look like old film. So anyway, yeah, I did this film and I went home and I cut it that night. I cut it pretty quick and I sent over the rough cut to Amanda, and I'll never forget, she was she sent the link to Kylie and was relaying Kylie's messages back to me in real time. She was screenshotting these messages, and I was just sitting in front of the computer just staring at this thing like a child. Like I was nervous, but the things she was saying, I didn't really think that I would ever hear. And she was like, this guy's talented. Wow, let's get him on board. Like I almost like had these internal fights, like you're not really ready or you're not really worth this. So I went down and I met with her and I filled out, all the appropriate forms. And I was still, and I explained to her, I said, look, I appreciate the time you can give me. And I knew I would learn a lot there. And I did. And you learn a lot in a very fast environment. And that's also back in the day when Instagram was capped at 15 seconds. So I would go out on an event and I would shoot for 3 hours and have to come back and give her a 15-second video that told the whole story. So I almost feel like that was a real big advantage to my filmmaking now, because then they opened up, you could put a minute on that bad boy. And I thought, like I was basically being carried in on like, by people feeding me grapes. And I was, sitting on a chair with, I thought I was Superman. I was like, I have a minute to tell a story. That's ridiculous. And so I think it sharpened me a little bit. What I had to do there. And I did promo after promo, and I was working full time, and I would go there on the weekends, and she redid the shop and I helped out. And then I left GameStop. I was done. And I was like, I can do this. It was a touchy time. It was tough. Between the two of us, we were, I would say, struggling just to keep everything afloat. And we were printing t-shirts, and we were, she taught herself how to do design, and it was like a lot of like learning happening between the crew there at Crux. And I value my time there for the couple of years I was there, and I look back on it and know how much legitimate growth I had as an artist under those circumstances, which were scrapping to make some money. You know what I mean? You also want to keep your art. And I would ask, can I please go do these free events? I know we're not getting paid, and I promise I'll get the paid stuff done, but I still want to go out, and I want people to say, hey, there's a Crux guy. You know what I mean? And I want to cover Art Walk, and I want to cover, one of my favorite things I did was, when Jacksonville finally passed the Human Rights Ordinance, the HRO, I was on site. I was there with my camera for the vote, and things like that. It was free. We didn't make any money, but boy, it felt good to be part of something in this city, and to be really at the time one of the few. I know there's a few people doing something similar now. There's the Jax guys, and there's a number of people doing cool stuff. But I really, really, now that I own my own business, I would like to get back to doing that kind of stuff. It's just hard to balance your time.
Indeed. And speaking of owning your own business, the name of your company is Shoot the Sky Image Works, and you started in November 2017, and you have it going currently. What's it like being an entrepreneur and all that good stuff, and some awesome stories of Shoot the Sky Image Works?
Yeah, during COVID, it sucks. I'll be honest. Not a lot of people getting married. So it did force me back into my old life at retail. I'm a Curaleaf now, and But I am still definitely all in on the business. I've invested a lot of money in my equipment and a lot of money, well, a lot of time teaching myself things, and definitely looking forward to coming out of this and perhaps going back full time to my business. Um, we and now my girlfriend is with me, and she shoots photography as well, and she basically did boudoir photography, and her stuff was so amazingly beautiful and captivating, and she had sort of like these nerves about like shooting events and all this stuff, and I'm like, you can't, I can't teach you any more than you already know. I could just kind of give you tips on how to shoot events, but you've got it. Like, you have that eye or you don't. And so we've done a couple weddings where I've shot video and she shot photo, so we make a really good team. It's sort of like we know where each other is going to be. We're like ballet dancing, you know what I mean? Staying out of each other's way. I really think that her photography does complement my style, so I mean, it's worked out really well. Um, and I've branched off. I've stayed a little bit afloat by doing some real estate, both video and photography, and that's a really cool. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy like going into houses and making spaces look great. And so you got to do what you got to do. I know there's a lot of other video people out there listening. A lot of the film bar people do side stuff with photography and with weddings, and obviously we're all going through a pretty bad time now. And it was interesting because I just bought a house. It was like everything was lined up, and then bam, COVID hit. So keep us in mind if you guys are getting married. Got you.
Indeed. And LOL Jack's Film Festival gave us a shout out. They said, "I heard of Shoot the Sky," and much love to Adam and Monique and all the cool volunteers that's helped them out with the whole uh, festival they got going on there.
Let's talk about those two.
Yeah, absolutely.
They suck. No, nobody can say that. No, seriously, how likable are they? Not even just how much respect I have for the work they put in, but they're awesome people. And if they can get along with me, I mean, shit. Oh, can we say that?
Yeah, if you want to.
All right. Hell yeah. God, I've been keeping it bottled up. No, really. I mean, that's an example, like what I was talking about earlier. Like, some of the people here in Jacksonville, some of the filmmakers are. I mean, it's mind blowing to me because nobody's getting rich here in Jacksonville. I mean, it's just love. It's pure love, and like you said, that like the one I'm not sure I wasn't there for the one shot, but I participated in like a 4 shot or 5 shot challenge where you weren't allowed to have even changing lenses meant it was a different shot. So I mean, like I was blown away by some of the talent here in Jacksonville. There's some real standouts. And then I think the 3-part challenge was really cool, and that was the last one I think we did at Sunray, where basically you had writers, you had directors, and you had editors. So basically, and I chose all three. So I wrote one, I directed one, and I edited one, and all 3 parts was phenomenal. I had a blast, and it's like you said, Tim. He comes up with these. I think Tim and Franklin came up with these ideas, and that was really one of the best. And so that night was at Sunray, and these films came up, and even though it was like all these chefs in the kitchen, so you had someone writing it, then they passed it on, and you didn't really know who wrote it or anything, and then you have a director who had to basically put the film together and sort of produce it in a way. So you had a director slash producer, and then you had the editors, and you would think that it would be like the telephone game, that the message from point A to point Z would be completely fouled up. But what I saw was really good collaborations, like really good. Like I was like, this is legit. Um, I had written one, and whoever directed it got in and made some cool changes to the story. In fact, when I saw them outside, they were like embarrassed and really apologetic. And I said, no, 2 things. One, I'm absolutely blown away by the ideas you had, and 2, you left the idea so intact that I could still go film it and nobody would recognize it. So they really took the idea of what I was talking about and they sort of made their own thing. And I was fine with it. I thought it was cool. And again, I think for me, because of, wanting to go to film school and not being able to, or choosing to, agree to those terms, if I see somebody making a creative choice or even just being creative in any way, I will support it. Like, if there's a film festival in Jacksonville and I don't have a film in it, you'll see me there. I will 100% be there. For LOL, I was there for each night. For 48, I've got tickets to each night. Like, I want to support everyone in Jacksonville that sacrificed their time to tell some sort of a story. I will be there if I can. I will do whatever I can to be there. And I love that you're raising money for Sunray. I think that's truly amazing.
Thank you.
That's a good, really good. I mean, not only is the theater cool, they have like a great menu and cool people that work there. I've never had a bad experience. So I applaud that. That's a really good idea.
Indeed. And speaking of LOL Jack's film festival, which is Love Our Locals, you did a short film or made a short film called Movie Night. What was the production stories of Movie Night?
The production is a usual, as per usual for Shoot the Sky, meant it was myself lighting and directing and actually acting in that one, with the help of my beautiful girlfriend Bethany, who puts up with. I mean, I can get really uptight on a set. Anyone that's works with me knows, and it's usually because I really don't. I don't know how to. I'm really bad at asking for help, so I'm really bad at even having people come in and crew my stuff, because I'm like, I got this. So even sometimes if I do have people helping out, I just walk past them and set the and I just don't even know how to do that. So if somebody can get me out of that habit, that might be good. But so basically, I had written something. Um, I can't remember the actual. So I had written something that I really liked for LOL, and then I scrapped it. And I remember, I think it was due on a Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday at 7. And Friday night, Bethany was heading to bed, and I opened my laptop and I just started writing. So I wrote it Friday. We filmed Saturday. We had to wait till it got dark because it was supposed to be. So we basically filmed at 8 o'clock on Saturday. It was like a 48, actually, to be honest. And I cut it and I got it to Adam probably right before the deadline. So it was just another pretty. And again, I liked it. I really I thought it was what it was, and it was just a quick thing that we did. And I'm still sort of waiting for my chance to take a 3 weeks or a month out of my life and make something polished, because really what I've done has been challenges. It's been 43 48s, LOL, which I have a chance. I actually, last year at LOL, I did take something and I took a little more time to make it, which was cool. But my style is run and gun, and I'm sort of a one-man band. So um, that's just how the production was. It fit in line with every other production I've pretty much ever done, which is just, I got a camera. What time is it? Here's a light. Let's go. Let's film this thing. So
Indeed. And I'm a one run and gun kind of person myself, and it's just but if I have a crew, that'd be awesome. Indeed. And some of your other works that I found on your Vimeo channel were gay guys with glue guns. It automatically played, and I'm like, this is fantastic. What was the story behind gay guys with glue guns?
so my friend Ron, who was one of the gay guys with the glue gun, um, actually met Ron at Crux. He came down to Crux Collective to purchase a painting once from Kylie, and we stayed in touch. He's a part of the arts community. He collects paintings, and he's very knowledgeable and very sweet man. And he was doing something for the University of North Florida, and he said they're sort of interested in maybe doing some sort of a YouTube channel or something. And he said, "Can you come by and help me film like a pilot?" And so I didn't realize I was unlocked on that channel. So, so I went to a house in Springfield, um, and again, it was just like I literally showed up. with all my bags by myself, and my buddy Tito. Actually, I said, "Hey, come down. Let's surprise Ron," because Ron loves Tito. So I said, "Come down and surprise. We'll surprise Ron, and you could just be my PA." So basically, Tito held the mic, and and we just rolled two cameras, and they said funny stuff. And it probably took me, 35 minutes to edit that. And I thank you for reminding me. I was supposed to edit more like a 3-minute version, so I need to get that done for them. But but it was gay guys with the glue gun, and it was, and a cat, of course, and somebody bringing them drinks, which was kind of funny.
Indeed. And what are some stories behind Nook?
Okay, so Nook was it was the first film bar challenge I took part in. And what it was we were allowed, I believe it was 5 total shots. So if you moved the tripod, it was a shot. If you changed the lens, it was a shot. So I asked Tim when he gave out the rules, I said, so if the camera doesn't move and the lens stays the same, but it's a different time period, is that still the same shot? And he said, yeah, that's editing. That's fine. So I decided to tell a story of a nook, breakfast nook, of a married couple, basically from first night in the house to 3 years later, and all that happens in between. So my one shot was basically a one shot that I dissolved. And again, I shot it in about 4 hours. And Rich Pintello is the first time I met Rich, and Jacqueline Miller. Jacqueline basically produced it because Jacqueline secured Rich and the child we used. So she got producing credits. I was like, I couldn't have done it without you because I don't really know actors yet. I was pretty new to Jacksonville. And we even I painted the wall to show time passage. And I just sold the house. But when I sold that house, I had to go and touch it up because when I repainted, it was terrible because I was doing it really quick. So it was basically the major events in their life told from that one point of view. And then I saved so one shot was a main shot. Then I had a one shot of Jacqueline, a one shot of Rich. I had a one shot of the surprise at the end. And maybe it was just 4. So that was my story of Nook. And then we took that to the Women in Film Festival at UNF, and we showed it there, and it's sort of on the shelf now. But it was good memories because, to be honest, that was the first real time that I had trained actors reading my stuff. And I remember in the first emotional take with Jacqueline, and again, all I had was my roommate Jason at the time. Jason was holding the boom mic, which he's done probably 20 times since then. He's holding the boom mic. I'm behind the camera. I call action, and she lays into this monologue and gets really emotional. And I'm like, I look over at Jason, and he's just standing there staring at me. And I was like, oh, this is what this is like. Oh, as a director, you're like, and a writer, when you hear somebody reading your lines and they get it, you know what I mean? That's one thing with untrained people is they may not understand the role so much, but trained actors really read into it. And I was blown away. I thought they did a really good job. And I've really, I've looked for that feeling ever since, like getting people that are trained. And again, I still absolutely love bringing in somebody who has interest but has never really worked in film, because every once in a while you get somebody who's untrained, who there's a rawness to them. Like growing up, I loved Harmony Korine movies like Kids and Gummo. If you've ever seen them, I mean, it's almost like a documentary, and like I loved A Guide to Recognizing Your Saints, and other movies and Martin Scorsese has a lot of that where the dialogue seems real, almost uncomfortably real. And I don't know that you can always get that from trained actors because they're so trained to emote a certain way. You get that realistic thing. And so a lot of times in my films, I may have an actor read the wrong line to get a different reaction. And I will also change things up last minute so they're sort of uncomfortable with the scene if it's an uncomfortable scene. I also love an actor to play on their own, to say, can I take a crack at this? I'm not married to anything I've written. And yes, there's been lines I'm like, you're going to say that line, but I'm certainly not married to it. I really think one of the beauties of filmmaking is it is such an ensemble collaboration. It's not just the writer's film or the director's film, because everybody has so much input in small ways that it can color the film a certain way. And I experienced that with the last 48 this 2 weeks ago. And I had some pretty good people. I had some really good people on the acting side. Again, Rich was there, and Lana was there, and we had a newcomer named Olivia who played their daughter, and they made my job easy. I mean, I really, and especially in a 48 when you don't have a lot of time for take after take after take, what they gave me was amazing. And I was like, I'm so honored to hear, you embracing my ideas that way and making it your own. So that yeah, so Nook, back to my original point, Nook was the first real thing I did in Jacksonville for a challenge. I think they showed it out at the beach. Um it was a little playhouse. It wasn't Players by the Sea. It was like A Bets or something like that. And I met some new people I had not met before. And then I didn't really feel like part of the film community just yet, but slowly but surely, I think by putting some of my work forward, people were a little more receptive to me. They can't stand me now, but at least back then they were certainly a little more receptive.
Indeed. And since you participated in the Women in Film Festival and the 48-hour film festival and the LOL Jax Film Festival, were you ever nominated for awards or won awards at those festivals?
Um, we got a couple nominations. 48. Last year we took second overall place, which we were pretty proud of. Um, and here or there, I can't remember. I mean, last year I thought my lead Curie was going to be nominated, and apparently well, he was, but apparently he just missed winning the lead actor, which was, again, a testament to not me, but to his understanding of the work, and he was in on the writing and such. And then what's hilarious is movie night this year. My mother, who played my drunk mother in the movie, was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, which is, I mean, her line was, "I want more vodka," and vodka helps, and thank you, and I need more vodka. That was basically her 4 lines. But apparently she nailed it, so she was nominated for movie night. But yeah, to be honest, again, movie night was thrown together so quickly, and I wasn't looking for nominations. I enjoyed the feedback I got from the crowd, and some certain people reached out individually and was like, I just really enjoyed it. And one of my things is, it's sort of hard, I think, unless you're great, it's sort of hard to capture audience and judges. I think it's maybe two different pathways. And if you have all pistons firing, I think you may be able to capture both. But from what I've seen, it's either or. So like The Landing, I made a film called The Landing, and I took audience choice, but we got very little nominations. And I was just happy. I was really happy with audience choice, especially since I didn't show up with an entourage. I really had like 4 people I knew. So I knew legitimately like the audience liked it. And I think it was, the feedback I've gotten has been that the things that I write and film aren't grandiose. They're really, really down to earth, and people just relate. And that's what I'm shooting for, is something that's relatable to people. Can I do the other stuff? Yeah, I could absolutely take my drone out. And the first 48 I did, I was that guy who I was like, oh, I'm going to wow people. And I got my drone out, and I had like 7 locations, and I had a bar written, and I had this, and I had practical effects, and I was like, when I was trying to edit that, I was like, what did I do? What have I done? And it was a mess. It was pretty. It had some cool stuff, but it was a mess. And I said to myself, no more of that. So next 48, I toned it down, and this 48, I toned it even more down. And so it's a different type of filmmaking. But again, taking out that first one, I think the last year's and this year's is a little bit more like, I wanted to just connect with everyday people. And one of the reasons I love Stephen King is he writes these crazy stories, but really what makes his stories great is the people he puts in the situations are like every other person you know. Very few people in his books are like these big heroes. They're really, like a plumber that can see into the future, whatever. I don't know. That's terrible, but apologies to Mr. King. But that's what I mean. Like he takes ordinary people and puts them in extraordinary situations. I like taking ordinary people and putting them in ordinary situations because I think it's funny. Because if you don't laugh, if you can't laugh at how stupid we are in 2020, I mean, we're just how stupid we are as human beings. It's fun. It's laughable. I don't know how we've gotten this far and without killing each other. I mean, we've tried, and there's division and there's all this stuff. But the one thing we can do is we can laugh at ourselves. That's why Saturday Night Live, and I don't, without talking about right or left or anything like that. Like you have to find comedy in tragedy. Like to stay sane, we have to do that. So when somebody says to me, my brother, you know, literally said that the newest Avengers movie, and I'll probably get some flack for this, but I really sort of despise superhero movies. I know they're good, and it's my own block. But he said that the latest one or the last one should be taught in film schools, and I'm like, should be taught in film schools. That's what he said. So to me, I always hark back to a movie like um, Manchester by the Sea, which if you tried to elevator pitch that, it's not, you can't say, this guy jumps off a plane and gets hit with Thor's hammer in the face. And there's nothing grandiose about it, about a man who's dealing with the death in the family. But it's so well done and it's so down to earth that to me, I get way more out of something like that than I do out of like the Hulk. Because we all know those people. I know everyone's going to be like, oh, these people died and these people died. I'm like, yeah, but then like in 2 years, they're going to have some sort of thing where they came back. So when you don't have, there's no stakes. I don't see there being any stakes in a superhero movie. I like the Batman, the Nolan stuff, because he was human and he had stakes and he had fears. So there was like flaws there to overcome. And I know, yeah. So I will say, like good superhero movies, like the Marvel stuff. Some of it is really good because I do know that they're trying to overcome certain things. But on a whole, it's generally like jumping off of planes. There's some Batman versus I don't know, Batman versus Superman, and somebody's on a Batmobile, and they're driving 80 miles an hour, and like an F-14 flies overhead, and one of the superheroes, I just remember in the trailer, like jumps off of the Batmobile forward. He jumps forward while doing 80, so I don't really know how that's possible. But then he catches on to like an F-14. Call me crazy, but at that point I tapped out. I was like, I'm never seeing this movie. So boils back down to what I was saying earlier. If you can tell, I think there could be an interesting story about a boy who's going to the grocery store for his mother to get a loaf of bread. Who knows what? Because we've all been there, and who knows? Maybe the story underlying is about leaving your family or going on a journey. It's like some of the greatest Greek stuff is, these huge volumes of like this character who's going from point A to point B, and it's like it's his emotional journey and it's his physical journey. Lord of the Rings, you have these great. So why not bring it down to a small scale? Why not have somebody has to go to brave Walmart without a mask on? I don't know. I mean, there's just things we can tell that where people go, oh, that's refreshing because I that happened to me the other day. I love shows like Silicon Valley because it's about a group of guys who really have no right getting $1 million check, but they do, and they go to the bank and they try and cash it because they have no idea what it's like to be rich or anything. So, I mean, I love things based in reality, and so that would be really my aim whenever I make something is to make it so people can just be like, man, that was refreshing because it really reminded me of my life.
Indeed, and another short film that you made on for Vimeo, or that's on Vimeo, is called Disconnected. What's the story behind Disconnected?
Um, I don't, I just remember, I was out somewhere, and it was I think I swear to you, I think it was at River and Post, and I'm pretty sure there was a couple on a first date, and they were in the booth, and it's, if anyone's been to River and Post, it's a great location on the rooftop. You have a beautiful view. It was a cool night. It was breezy. It was perfect, and they had some drinks, and they had some, some tapas, and they were both on their phone. And then she like leaned back, and I was like, "Oh, she's making a move," and he was still on his phone. And I don't know. Maybe in my mind, I made up they were on a first date. Maybe they were married for 10 years and they're just bored. I don't know. But all I thought of was, what would that night be if their phones were in their glove box? Maybe they may find out something really really cool about their partner or their date that they can't get from Facebook or Instagram. So my mind, I instantly started spinning wheels, and so I wrote Disconnected, about a couple that is so addicted to their phone and what would happen if they lost service during dinner, because God forbid they eat and look at each other. And so the main joke, the big twist, or the main joke I thought of was, what happens when their phone service goes out and they look at each other, and she basically is like, "When did you grow a beard?" And he's like, "Last March." So I just sort of expanded it from there, from middle out. So,
Indeed, and there's
and
a lot of
it
of
was
course.
it was Bethany's first time, and she had acted in school, but stage acting. And so I make fun of stage actors all the time, because I'm like, you tone it down. I'm right here. Tone it down. Anyway, that was her first thing, and I really enjoyed performing with her. And she also was my co-star in movie night. And no, I am not an actor, and I'm not trying to be an actor. I just, sometimes you don't have, especially with COVID, you don't have people in your neighborhood that are actors. So I just decided, let me jump in. But some of the feedback we've gotten from both films is, you guys have a good chemistry, and I'm like, well, I hope so. You know, we should.
Indeed, and there's a lot of people that are obsessed with their phones, and so it was a perfect movie indeed. So you also did a Welcome to Kindergarten, or is it just Kindergarten?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's funny. I got all these unlocked things. So a friend of mine has that. She has her own. I don't know if it's a website or it's a group on Facebook called Welcome to Kindergarten, and it's just a group of women. And after hearing some of these things, I really feel for what women go through on dating sites, and not even dating sites. You probably just perusing Facebook, and you get the DMs, and you're like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I went out to, I had never been to Gainesville, so they were like, "Hey, come out, we're all gonna go out in the town, and you should just come hang out." So I went out. Of course, I had my camera with me, because I usually travel with my camera, and they were reading me some of these things, and I was like, "Hold on, I'm gonna go get my camera, because you got to we got to make a trailer for this website." And so what they would do is, they would screen capture these horrible things that were being said to them, or tasteless things that were being said to them, and they shamed these men that were being very disrespectful. So they put them on the website. But some of the stuff was, I don't even know how people can look at themselves in the mirror, but
Indeed. Yeah, I'm not on dating websites myself or apps. So I'm just like, they're just a waste of time.
they are pretty, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm much of an old school kind of person. If they find me attractive, then they can approach me. So,
Look at you.
indeed. So how did you work on Trapped? What's the story on Trapped?
So that was my 48. That was the one I said that was sort of a mess. It was like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna tell this story. And so my worst fear, actually, speaking of fear, my worst fear that first 48, having never done it, was I was going to draw something that I wasn't good at. And I drew horror. It was either, I think it was horror or musical. So I was like, no, I don't really watch horror movies. Again, my girlfriend loves them. And so that's something I've been trying to do, is see more horror films. But this is before I met her. This was 3 years ago. And I thought to myself, what is scarier than a couple who's getting married, and their worst fears is that they're not good enough for themselves or for their partner. everybody has the internal fear. So I was like, what if they were locked in a room, trapped in a room the night before their wedding with the dress in the room, and all their fears come up and it's manifested outside. So she was dealing with the loss of her brother. She was dealing with the fear that he had cheated on her. He was dealing with his own insecurities. Like, it was all that stuff wrapped into, unfortunately, a 7-minute story. So that was the lesson. I could probably tell that story in 12 or 13 minutes, but 7 minutes was tough. And so that was the one I really did. I bit off more than I could chew. And I had scenes in a bar, I had scenes at the park, and I had scenes in this room. And if anyone's familiar with the 48, um, if you really only have one period of darkness to film in, because you're usually going to be writing Friday until 3 or 4 a.m. and nobody's really up for filming that night. So you really have the next day, you have mostly daytime, and then you have just a small shot of nighttime. So that was one of the reasons I chose that story, is that my friend Alyssa had a house that they were still doing some work on, and she had a room that was half finished, and I was like, that's a creepy ass room. Let's lock some people in this room and scare them. So basically that 48 that I'm proud of, but I could have done better, and I certainly look back on it and sort of cringe. But
Indeed, and I saw a video of the Jacksonville Real Estate Investors Association. How did that come about?
that's a good question. I don't. Uh, I possibly. Well, like I said, I did a bunch of real estate photography, and I think somebody had reached out to maybe one of the realtors I had worked with, and said, I need somebody to do some photos. And I did photos for her, and then I said, I also do video, and then I showed her some of my videos, and so she needed someone to document that trade show. So I went down and did that. And then I since have shot photography for their Christmas party too. So again, you know, doesn't matter to me if it's corporate work, if it's putting a camera in my hand, I'm happy doing it. I'm happy, telling a story, even if it's just real estate. It's still, people have stories, and it's kind of an interesting day. Real
In,
estate.
indeed, for sure. And I noticed the drums in the background, and we both have Audio Technica headphones. I'm wearing mine now, uh, which I love. But
That's
you
Audio Technica mic too. It's an AT3035.
uh,
That's a
they
good
have
brand.
excellent products. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I just love their stuff. You for the music side, you I saw the 14 North Drowning music video. What did you do on that one?
So 14 North. Again, I forget how they reached out to me, and they needed a shoot done at one of their shows down in St. Augustine. So I went down for photography, and I shot the show, and it was in this little cool dive bar, and I was right across the bridge. I'm not really Bridge Alliance. I'm not sure what the name of it, but it's right there on the left. They basically played in the front window, and it was hardly any room, but I just, I made it work. And in between some of the shots, I just clicked my camera over. It's one of the reasons I shoot Canon hybrid cameras, because you never know when you're going to be in the moment. And so I just clicked it over and took some video of them, just to sort of sample. Now, you may be talking about the second video. There's a full video I did, and then there's a little teaser video. Well, I shot the teaser video, and I just cut it in like 20 minutes and sent it to them with the photos. And they were like, "Oh my God, this is really cool." And I said, "Well, if you want to shoot an actual video, we can do that." And so they brought me on to shoot a live video down at in San Marco. What is that called? It's one of the few music venues left.
Hmm.
Jackrabbits, I think. Is it
Ah,
Jackrabbits? Yeah. So I came down and shot one of their shows there, and just cut a video. Cool guys, really really great sound, cool sounding band, real nice, put together, like just real solid. I enjoyed my time doing that.
indeed. I wasn't familiar. I've been to Jack Rabbit's a couple of times, and I believe the venue at is called Nobby's at in St. Augustine. That's the one I can think of, or Sarbez. That's across the
It's
lines.
right across the Bridge of Lions on the left-hand side. It's, like, pretty much right on the road,
Uh,
but they have a big following down there, and I believe they were put together by the one of the members of Puddle of Mudd, so they have good pedigree, and they were kinda handpicked. Great sound. I really enjoy. Again, I really enjoyed. I enjoy their music and I enjoy what they do on stage. They're have real good. And as a drummer and a terrible guitar player, I sort of feel like I I I, I could tell what's going to happen. I could tell, especially when I edit. I know what drum is being hit. It drives me nuts when I watch music videos and the editor does not know what chord they're playing or if they're on the ride cymbal and they're showing them on the hi-hat and it's like you really dropped the ball. So I think music videos is will be one of my level lines of expertise. I just need a good band to reach out to me.
Indeed. What speaking of your music career, being a drummer and a guitarist, which bands and projects have you been a part of?
I have not. These drums are new, and it was a long story how I lost my old kit, and I was playing with a somebody that was based out of the Phoenix Arts uh, Phoenix Arts District, the warehouse next door, and my drums were left in the warehouse, and the owner didn't know whose they were, and apparently she had reached out to this person several times to figure out where they belonged and got no response. So she found a new home for them. And so that was a drum kit that basically not the drums themselves. I bought those in about 2002, but the cymbals I had from 1983 whenever I got my first kit, and it was about $3,000 or $4,000 worth of cymbals. So that was a tough moment for me, knowing that I had lost everything, including my guitar amp and my drum kit and all my hardware. And a friend of mine, Tito, I mentioned him earlier, Tito Soso, and Brett, a buddy of mine from back home, behind my back, took up a GoFundMe because I was obviously very upset, and they raised almost $1,000 to help with the new kit, and so I got this kit. I didn't really have a place to play because I was not putting my drums anywhere near a warehouse anymore, and my old house was a townhome, and so I wouldn't want to do that to people. So one of the things when I bought my new place was I demanded that we get a place with an interior room, um, which doesn't exist in a lot of houses. Usually the rooms are lined up along the outside, so you get a lot of sound bleed outside. So this has an office as an interior room, and apparently you can't really hear when I play the drums outside. So very excited. My next thing is when I get everything squared away, I would like to put something together and do just a crappy band that may play once a month. I'm not looking to make money. I really just want to play music.
Indeed. Another music related post I had was the Jacksonville Porch Fest in 2019. What was that experience like?
So I shot, let's see. My first year with Crux, we were brought on because we were in Springfield, and that's where Porch Fest is. And so we were brought on, and I remember I was working my GameStop on 103rd that day, and it was a Saturday, and I had put in pretty much my minimum, which was 43 or 44 coming into the day. So as soon as I got help, I told my people, I'm like, look, I'm going to go. I'm not feeling well. And so I had my gear in my car, and I put on my Crux shirt, and I went out to Springfield. And I remember the drive. I literally can remember almost the entire drive, and I felt like a real whole person. Like I was like, this makes me so happy, and I'm going to go. And I just went and I shot. I think it was 2015, and I shot the 2015 Porch Fest, and I came up with a couple different cuts, and they were posted all over the place. And then they brought us back the following year, and I shot that year. And then last 2 years ago, they did not have a budget, and I was hired by some people that represented Andrew Gillum that day anyway, and I went and did some canvassing shoots and everything. So I missed it 2 years ago, but then last year they brought me back to shoot, and it was a great year. They did such a good job. There were some new people there in charge, and the acts were just as good as ever, and the last two acts were phenomenal on the main stage, and I had an absolute blast shooting that year, last year, and I hope they bring me back. I'm not really sure with COVID. I don't really know what the deal is, but I was proud of that one. That was a good video. I really enjoyed it.
Indeed. And I visited your website, and I looked at your photography at shootthesky.net, and you're quite the globetrotter with Dubai and Budapest and Paris and Jacksonville with the cityscapes. That's what I saw on there. Um, uh, what's the story behind all those
I
places?
actually have not. So I that could very well be some anything Jacksonville or New York is me, but the Dubai I've never been.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that was my chance to really be like, I got a Learjet, no big deal. But yeah, I've not been there, so I'm not sure where those photos come from. There may be my website is an absolute mess. Any web designers out there want to trade some hello, want to trade services? Let's talk. So my website is completely just sort of being built as we're talking, unless yeah, but it needs to be fixed. But yeah, all the Jacksonville stuff obviously is mine, and there's a couple New York things that I've put up on there.
Awesome. And I checked out the portraits that you had. You had events, products, the wedding, Jacksonville Art Walk. What are some memories of all those shoots?
I love Art Walk. My first year, I will say, post divorce, and you know what happens when you're in a relationship and you're married, and we moved down here from New York, and we assimilated pretty quickly, and we really enjoyed the things we did, but we really didn't reach out and do a lot of stuff. I can remember my ex-wife coming home. Her job had sent her to um, the big festival, the crowdsourcing festival. Shoot, what is it called? One Spark. And she would tell me all about this One Spark, and I was like, that's kind of weird. And I just didn't know anything like that existed in Jacksonville. The following year, when I was separated or divorced, I started heading out and finding these things. And I remember my friend Young had said, "Come down to Art Walk tonight." I'm like, "What is Art Walk?" I just pictured like literally like a sidewalk with some people selling pictures. And he said, "Oh, you'll enjoy it." And he didn't tell me much about it. He said, "Just come down around where downtown in Hemming Park is." So I drove down, and I was completely astounded that these blocks were shut down. And it was an Oktoberfest, so it was like October of 2015. And I had my camera, and I was blown away by, you know, this doesn't even happen in New York. Like, yeah, there's like festivals that shut down a block, but this is like 4 or 5 blocks, and it was packed. And I was super impressed. And I was like, I'm going to come to as many of these and I swear to you, I probably went to 55 out of 58. There are very few that I miss, and I had a blast. And I love doing videos down at Art Walk. I love the bands. There's some great bands out of Jacksonville, and I really wanted to come back. I really, really miss, and I'm an introvert, but I miss people. That's how you know it's bad. I like just curling up in my house, but and around people I don't know, I can kind of go in a corner and just be like, yeah, I'm interested in listening to what you're saying, but I really don't want to interact too much. And I'm sure I've come across that way to many people, and I apologize. But I really miss people. I miss getting out. I think there's going to be so many positives that come out of this COVID thing. I mean, where else? I don't want to say it. I was going to say, where else can we go from here? But when it comes out of it, people are going to they're going to really respect other people more. I feel like from being secluded so much, they're going to really enjoy people's company again. Once we stop arguing over the stupidest things, once we stop making things political, like once we realize that we are all, I don't, I don't know anybody that lives in this country that doesn't want this to be a better country. Regardless of who you vote for, like we all basically want peace for ourselves and our family. You know what I mean? It's pretty frustrating, to see the division that's here. And I think maybe that's when COVID is finally done, when we realize that, whether it be a vaccine or what have you, I think the world may be a better place, strangely enough. And I think it's almost like, I guess, when you have a cast on for a summer, and maybe you weren't that athletic and maybe you weren't that adventurous as a kid, but you had a cast on, and then you get the cast off and you realize all the things you could have been doing the whole time but weren't. So maybe people will realize, wow, I'm going to go explore my city, and I'm going to go support some local artists, and I'm going to go see a movie. Maybe I'm going to go to Sunray instead of go to my multiplex that's boring and too bright and pizza sucks. Maybe there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of it. 5 Points is great, by the way. I've said it from the beginning. Like, Jacksonville is made of all these cool pockets with some crap in between, but 5 Points will always be one of the coolest places because 5 Points is really run by artists, and artists are sort of, they refuse to change and they're stubborn about it. And so you have 5 Points that's really the same. It's morphed here and there, but basically, if you're looking for an art community, I think 5 Points is one of my favorite places. So that's my point on that. I really think that that when you asked that question about these different events, I really went back like, man, that was amazing that you could just leave the house without something covering half your face and grab a beer with some friends and get some Carmine's pizza, best pizza in Jacksonville. I want something from you, Carmine's. I want some of your pizza.
It,
Um, isn't it good? Have you had it?
Not yet, but I've been to the Pizza Cave by Sunray,
Oh,
and
that's good.
oh,
That's
it's really delicious.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
And Moon River. I didn't leave you out, Moon River. You're my second favorite.
Indeed. And let's see here. Let's have a rig rundown. I know that you use a T3i and such, but what do you use now with all your production?
Um, so I went from the Canon Rebel. I went to a 5D Mark IV, and so I used the 5D Mark IV as my hybrid camera for. I still have it, and I have a Canon C200. So it's a cinema camera. It's taken me a year and a half to figure out how to rig it because it's a lot. And I've shot a couple weddings when I thought I was going to die because it just wasn't rigged correctly. So I got a nice Zacuto, and everything's much more comfortable now. And I did order an R5, and the reason I ordered an R5, and I understand there's, everyone's going to give me shit for it, but it's a B-roll camera. And it's really a stills camera. So if the two weddings I've shot with Bethany, we've had, most weddings, if anyone's ever shot weddings, that you think you have everything squared away for time, and then none of that ever comes true. So I've had to put my cinema camera down and pick up my old Rebel and take photos with her because everything's running behind as per like family that aren't supposed to be there are coming in and getting pictures taken, and everybody wants. So I decided to have two very good still cameras on my person at a shoot would be amazing. Plus, for weddings, if I can set my C200 up as a cam and then take a smaller, lighter 5R or an R5 around, and get close-ups and whatnot in 4K, that's perfect. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I bought a lot of lights, a lot of good sound stuff. I'm a huge believer in making your videos sound good, because if you have, I don't care if you have Roger Deakins shooting something and you have poor audio, people will tap out like immediately. If I hear bad audio, I'm gone. So, I've got two boom mics, I've got wireless, lapel mics. It's just the sound is really important to me. And again, I love recording drums and guitars and stuff. I just think I'm just very interested in the recording of sound. So
Absolutely. And let's see here. What I've gathered from all the interview that we've had tonight, I from like the skeleton crew that you had, and being a running gun, and not being able to go to a film school that was accredited. Have you tried reading or do you have a Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez in your bookshelf?
I do not.
Oh, I highly recommend it. It's details his entire career, like what you've faced, your trials and tribulations, and there's like a 10-minute film school that's in the back of the book, and which is like an awesome read, and it's a quick read too. So I definitely recommend that book if you ever get the chance to buy it. And
I absolutely will probably buy it on Amazon tonight because that sounds very interesting.
Awesome, good stuff. And are there any final words you'd like to share with the viewers at home?
I want to thank you for what you do. I enjoyed. I went back and watched a couple of your episodes. I really enjoyed the fact that you put me on after Mike Madden because it just makes me look all that much better. So thank you for that. I'm sorry,
You're
Mike. I love you, Mike. Just kidding. Mike was very interesting, which is a testament to what you can do because you know. But I really support anything that's done in a creative manner because I think it's very healing. And I think the welcome is heading down a different path. And I think we really, more than ever, I think we need people to send out positive messages and to tell stories that really matter, that people can connect to and to sort of learn from. I think that's our filmmakers' gift back to society and to themselves is to figure, every time I watch a movie and if I find myself, I don't want to say I'm emotionless. I'm a Virgo. I'm pretty grounded. I'm like, is it going to serve me? Is it logical for me to become emotional right now? And then it happens randomly in a movie, and I'm wondering to myself, what, where did that come from? And then so it makes me kind of internalize and look for the healing properties of whatever it was that touched me. So if the term triggered is used all the time now as a joke, but we get triggered and we get triggered by certain things that we see, whether we're laughing really hard or we want to cry. It's something that is either extremely close to something we've been through or something that we don't realize in ourselves. So you have to sort of take a look and say, why did that touch me? And then it helps you. It's honestly like counseling. Honestly, like music, like think about life without music and without film. I mean, so the creative arts is one of our most important it's one of the most important things we have in society, and it gets sort of pushed, and people talk about what's important, but that's equally important as toilet paper and as milk and bread when the storm's coming. Like we have to continue to solve our problems, and by writing and filming and singing and doing all these things, we're sort of like solving things in real time, and we're doing it in hopefully entertainingly, hopefully.
Indeed, most definitely, and thank you for being that all that you do for the scene, and it's great catching up with you and all that good stuff. And I look forward to seeing what you have stored in the future. What do you have in the future that's after COVID?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have we're going to show our 48-hour film is being shown this Monday at Mosh, and I recommend if anyone's coming, buy tickets to Monday and Wednesday, or sorry, Monday and Tuesday as well. We'd love to see you there all 3 nights. I'm sure there are still some tickets left. I'm sure Adam or Monique can tell us if that's not true, but I'm hoping we get the theater as packed as we can safely. And some people that maybe haven't come down, I've got some more people coming than normal, and people that haven't experienced like sort of what Jacksonville has to offer. Um, 2 years ago during 48, I came up with an idea as a just in case, and I want to pursue it. And it's the story of a husband and wife who are moving. The husband is finally retiring. He's a workaholic, and the husband, um, they finally get to their new destination and they have a big argument because he explains to her, well, now I'm going to take up photography. And she says, I don't really understand. We haven't spent much time together. And so they get into an argument, and she goes upstairs and he sleeps on the couch, and he calls her from the couch, and they square it away. And she comes down to make up with him, and she finds him passed away. And so the next time she comes home from the funeral, she finds his camera there. It's been delivered. And so I wanted to tell the story of this woman who desperately wants to connect to this man that she hasn't really known. And she does so through his camera. And the name of the film is Iris, and it's half written. And that would be the next project that I would like to tackle, but not in such a rushed way. I would like to make it sort of my first Jacksonville I wouldn't say it's a feature, but I would say it's probably closer to 20 to 30 minutes as opposed to the 6, 7 minute 48s that I've been making in these challenges. So really, that would be probably the thing that's tugging at my heart the most to finish or to at least get started.
Indeed, absolutely. Looking forward to that when that comes out for sure, and hopefully everyone goes out to the 48 hour film festival screening this week, and support Monique and Adam. They're great folks of the community in Jacksonville, and thank you so much for joining me as my guest, Jay, for this week. And it was an honor to be a part of talk about your journey as a filmmaker and everything that you've done in the past, and I look forward to seeing what you bring to the future too. So, and all the good stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And until next time on Saturday Night Cenobites, we will see you next week. And be sure to follow and like and subscribe everything that's Jay's company on that scrolling on the bottom, and this everything's in the description box below too. So help a local filmmaker out, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.